The characteristics of the Harrisburg housing stock developed in the late 1800s into the 19 teens and the 1920s.
We do have a lot of historical by nature homes. Obviously, a lot of them are 100 plus years old, and we've got a lot that have original hardwood, exposed brick, the original wood moldings. So that character is, really almost impossible to recreate in a newer build.
You have quality of construction, which you don't get in newer homes today. You have a lot of space, they're big. If you look at cost per square foot, it's unbeatable. I think the reason Harrisburg has avoided the big crashes that some other parts of the country saw is our peaks are never as high as the West Coast or New England or the DC area, but then consequently our valleys are never as low.
There were some people who bought prior to that, maybe 2006, 2007, and bought at a certain price level. And those that were transferring for a job or whatever, just normal life changes, needed to sell, they couldn't sell for that same price. Now, a lot of those rentals, they've been able to sell them, and so we don't have a lot of houses for sale. This is probably the lowest inventory that I've seen in 10 years.
Values, no question, have gone up, and I think that's really largely because supply and demand. When you don't have enough product, that drives the prices.
It's a good thing for a seller. Prices should be increasing, and they are, but not drastically, just very steadily. The young couple or single person is the #1 demographic, 25 to 40 years old. It's become more of a place to live. It's always been walkable, but it's more walkable because we have more to walk to.
I think an interesting thing, and again, this is not a trend necessarily, but I do see it happening more than I did 20-some years ago. Older people, some empty nesters actually moving back to the city.
They raised kids, they don't need the 4-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house. So they're gonna sell that for various reasons and then move into a walkable community.
What the Harrisburg housing stock has is accessibility and convenience to a lot of amenities. I mean, people like to walk to market, walk to the cinema or the Zero Day Brewery and have a beer. That's an afternoon. That's a Saturday afternoon that if you're in the suburbs, people are cutting their grass or, doing their house projects. So it still comes back to being a lifestyle, I think.
Millworks led to the Broad Street market being more relevant. Better vendors, one vendor led to another, and now you'd go there during lunch, it's hard to find a place to sit. It's just great that the vibrancy of it is transformed that area. Some of the vendors at the Broad Street Market are now opening up their own places. They're taking spaces that were underutilized or not utilized at all, good quality businesses that people want.
There's restaurants, let alone 2nd Street and Restaurant Row, but even up on 3rd Street. We had none of that 30 years ago.
I know people that they said, I never drove into the city before. They live 5 minutes away, but it just wasn't safe enough for them, but now it is. So once they came to the Millworks one time, then they also said, oh wow, I got the Broad Street Market here, and this is pretty cool. And so I'm gonna spend some of my dollars here.
The Great Divide, the Susquehanna River, it's funny, it certainly is a thing. I do think a lot of the people moving in from out of the area, they just don't understand that. I sold a house last year, 2 years ago, to a couple that moved here from the West Coast. When I told them about it, they had no concept of what the Great Divide was. So I do think as the population naturally evolves, that's gonna go away. Because the city's so much better than it was.